So California has just totally gotten rid of its mandatory rule on private fleets having XYZ percentage of electric trucks. They just basically, we recognize this is not going to go over well at all, so we're out on this one, along with so many other mandates of electric vehicles. What's going on in California? Let's get into it. Here we go. The headline goes, the rule requiring private fleets to buy increasing percentages of zero-emission trucks never officially took effect. Why is that? Because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Let's just go ahead and mandate we're not going to sell any gas vehicles after 2035. That all just got absolutely shut down, didn't it? That's happened, in the last, within 2025. So many of these mandates that California was going to do, making them progressive and, so clean. Meanwhile, refineries are moving out left and right because they basically can't make a living. And California is just going through this wonky cycle of, well, we tried. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Look at this electric truck. Do we even call that a truck? Is that even a truck? That is just so ridiculous. Where's the big front end, like a Kenilworth, right? Where's that big front end where it's a truck? Maybe like in Maximum Overdrive. Remember that? Unfortunately, that's a Stephen King movie, but it had AC/DC on the soundtrack. And so I'm a huge fan of that movie. It's really good. Governor Gavin Newsom spent Climate Week positioning California as the foil to the Trump administration's assault on electric vehicles. Now, it's not an assault. None of these mandates make any sense. They're so wonky, right? But the scope of the damage was in full view Thursday as air regulators put the final nail in the coffin for the state's electric truck sales mandates. That is so dramatic to just basically say, hey, that regulation that you had for California, yeah, no good. We're not doing that. Yeah. Because it didn't make any sense. Over-regulation. What California is known best for doing. Washington State, not far behind. Hey, let's follow California and see how well it goes. California Air Resources Board, a powerful agency that sets emission standards for vehicles, power plants, and other polluters, voted to repeal its zero-emission purchasing rule for private fleets. Final remnants of the state's aggressive press to mandate a rapid electric transition in the trucking sector. This is going to take a long time to transition to cleaner energy. It's going to take a long, long time. And that's not because, we don't want clean air. It's because we're so overly dependent upon big oil and big oil products. And you can't just all of a sudden, 10 years goes by and we're done. It's just not going to happen. And I think anybody that's reasonable, that understands the reality of the economics we're looking at here, the power grid alone, the economics of, hey, maybe not everybody can afford a brand new electric vehicle, and you're just basically, pushing massive segments of the population out of buying new cars. Maybe there's that. I don't know, right? I mean, this stuff. California is just hell-bent on being the leader, the progressive leader that it is. And in doing so, has basically, tanked a lot of the sectors and divisions within California to the point where big employers don't want to have their businesses run there. They just don't. They're moving out, moving on up. That decision was a formality after the agency failed to secure permission to enforce its stricter than federal advanced clean fleets rule before President Donald Trump took office. But coming on the heels of Trump's revocation of a companion rule that would have required truck manufacturers to increasingly build and sell more electric models, the move shows how thoroughly Republicans have upended California's strategy. Just completely tossed it. Just boop, boop, boop. Yeah, just out the window it goes. Whether that's a bad thing in a medium and heavy duty trucking space where the market for electric technologies is still developing is a surprisingly open question. This is all going to take time. And we don't have the data back yet on how this is going to actually impact things. Hey, how many charging stations are we going to have? Hey, can the power grid handle all this? I remember hearing a number of stories about guys that ran big trucking companies, and they were talking about, I went to, my local city, whatever it is, to say, hey, I'm going to get, I want to get a permit to get a power station to power up these trucks for my mid-sized company, whatever. And the city entities came back and just basically laughed, saying, you're asking for the power requirements that would basically run half the city or half the town, something along those lines. They came back and said, no, that's not going to work. 'Cause the amount of pull that you're trying to get doesn't really exist in a actual, here's what we can provide for you. Here's what we can give you access to. So I think there's a ton of infrastructure, and I don't know the EV truck market very well. I just know that every single time that I turn around and there's a mandate towards something electric vehicle, it's based on, this is what we want to do, instead of, does this make sense? Does this pencil in any way, shape, or form? Because if it doesn't, then you're just going to have a longer lead in to a lot of this technology. And it could take forever, right? Forever. Let's not just jump on the bandwagon. It's the greatest thing ever, right? Shenanigans. It's up to us to show that electrification is going to be a great thing. All right. Okay, but you're getting a little bit ahead of yourself with all these mandates. I think that's what the marketplace is saying. That's certainly what Trump is saying, right? He is not a fan. Not something you have to do, but something that you want to do because you are a virtue signaling do-gooder. That's what you are. Now, the one thing that I always talk about is I have switched over to an electric electric lawnmower. And I'm a huge small engine gas kind of guy. Chainsaws, jet skis, Sea-Doos, boats, vehicles, anything that runs on gas. Yeah. But when it came down to, hey, this is a little bit more than a gas lawnmower, but I don't have to screw around with pouring gas in. I don't have to screw around with oil. I don't have to screw around with all that to that extent. And I just kind of charge up the battery. That one made sense to me. The electric car, if from the standpoint of being better for the environment, there's so many different factors there that I'm like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Where they're mining to get the materials for the battery, the size of the battery. What are we going to do with all these batteries? Just toss them in the landfill. It's going to be great. The weight of these vehicles, which indicates that the tires on electric vehicles are going to toss more rubber into the environment. I mean, that sounds fine, right? Just a lot more rubber. What could go wrong? Shenanigans, right? So this one basically just went sideways, and because so many of the other mandates just did the same thing, just faceplant. This isn't going to work out. Just boom, done. Newsom and California lawmakers have dealt with budget deficits in recent years, which have limited investment in climate programs. How much of that is going to get taken down? Because here in Washington State, we've had revisions of what we can expect to have revenue revisions. So we've got a deficit. Our deficit's just getting bigger. So spending money on shenanigans like this, it's going to get backed off. And any of these programs, they're going to get backed off. Yeah, can't really afford it. And yeah, we've got a massive deficit. So let's go in a more, I love the spin. I love the spin on how when these programs don't work or when they just get shit canned, as they sometimes should, not because they're bad in their entirety, but because the time frame, to me, you're just shoving it down people's throats for the sake of shoving it down because you want a virtue signal. Oh, we're so good. We're so clean here in California. This is the best thing ever. How about that rollback of the $7,500 federal tax credit for EV buyers? That ends end of September, a few days from now, right? So some people are going to buy those. Some people are still going to buy those because, I need an EV. Got to have an EV in my life. I see them all. You know what I see a lot of is those ridiculous Tesla Cybertrucks. To call that a truck, it's not even manly. You know what I mean? It's like, that's not a truck. I'm sorry, Elon. It's not a truck. It's not. It's some kind of space age van-ish SUV that might have a little bit of a bed, but the only thing you'd want to put back there is some really light garbage. Right? We're going to the dump, even though we live in, the most urban of Seattle areas. We're going to take the Tesla to the dump. So we've got that $7,500 EV credit. In August, sales jumped up 18%. Analysts expect another big increase in September, sale of EVs. But the demise of the tax credit will probably bring the party to an end. Did we have a party? I didn't get the memo. I didn't get the invite because I think so much of this is just absolute virtue signaling nonsense. Honestly, it is. After having podcast about the oil refineries in California, when you look at the actual details of what all that actually meant to the environment, like how we're just going to import from the Middle East a whole bunch of oil because you've cut off your own supply domestically in the state of California and for adjoining states. I mean, the impact on the environment from that alone is enough to make you go, this isn't all heading in the right direction. This doesn't make any sense at all. And it doesn't, but you can point to certain facts and, domestically, we're so much better than other states. Kind of. Sales of electric models are expected to plummet in the last 3 months of the year and then remain sluggish for some time. That's not a shocker. Next year could be a pretty dreadful year for EVs in this country. Well, and what you've also got is you had harebrained Biden. I mean, what's the last time you heard the name Biden, right? Do you know what I mean? That guy just disappeared. Where'd he go? Did he go to a nursing home? I mean, you hate to say it, the guy's got cancer. Is the next thing we're going to hear from him is that he's died? Horrible. You don't want to have anybody die. But it's just boop at the end of his presidency. Plus, he's got this cancer and has joined his bone in the groin area. I mean, and then you don't hear from him. Been reading some excerpts from Kamala Harris's book, 107 Days. That is a head scratcher of a book. I mean, that is a real head scratcher. I mean, is that like comedy? Is that what that book is supposed to be? I mean, I almost want to buy that book just because I need a good laugh. I need a laugh right now. I need this is too funny. She said what? And she's basing it on what? I think I might. How do I get that book for free? I don't want to buy it. You know what I mean? But whatever. Sometimes you got to bite the bullet and go down that road. How about this one? U.S. Senate blocks California's electric car mandate in historic vote. Though, three of California's kind of big mandates just boop, 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 got just early in the year knocked down. Just knocked down. Hey, you know what? Maybe you should allow your consumers to make the call by 2035 if they want to have an electric car or if they want to have a gas-powered car. Maybe you should allow them to do that instead of this. Here's what's going to happen. We're not going to allow you to buy cars past 2035. So this one happened not that long ago. This one was in May 22nd, 2025. Yeah. I mean, how about so many of these deals, just like this, somebody sat around in some kind of peyote session and said, hey, maybe it was ayahuasca. I'm not really sure. They said, hey, let's go ahead and let's just be really ultra progressive here. And we'll just ban all, gas car sales, new gas car sales by 2035. It probably just sounded, epic. But then you look at the reality of it, and there's so many little things that don't make sense. And when they were kind of coming out with some of that stuff, I remember there was a weekend last year, a year before, where we had unusual heat. It was just a super hot weekend. California did, and the Pacific Northwest did as well. And they were saying, hey, there's going to be massive suction, massive pull on the power grid. So if you guys would mind not charging your electric vehicles because the power grid can't handle it, and therefore we're going to need to shift that energy that you would have used for your charging up your electric cars, we're going to need to shift that to the air conditioners. And I remember thinking, you're literally out loud talking about mandating no more electric vehicles or no more gas-powered vehicles being sold, new ones in California in 2035. But your power grid is so inadequate that you're already existing telling people, don't charge those things. I find it both hilarious and absolutely ridiculous at the same time. And you're left with, what are those guys doing? What are they thinking? And that's a lot of the rub. They're not. And that's the whole thing, is that so many of these progressive ideologies, these plans that we're going to do, these things that we're going to do moving forward, greatest thing ever, they just fall flat because they're not based in reality. They're not based in reality at all. And then when things go sideways, and then you blame it on Trump. You just blame it on Trump. And that's kind of where a lot of these articles are heading, is that, and the Trump battered, what was it? Yeah, the Trump battered, Trump battered electric truck rule. No, it's common sense. It's common sense. This isn't going to work. You don't have the bandwidth to be able to do any of this. Stop with the nonsense. What is a reasonable rollout? What is a reasonable idea of how this can go? Well, we haven't been doing that, and reality has kind of brought things back to earth, and now we're left with, a bunch less of this stuff, and I think that's great, because people need to be able to make their own choices. We don't need to have this stuff mandated. It's ridiculous. It's so far ahead of its time. So far ahead of its time. When you've got entire countries around the world that are just throwing stuff up into the environment. And whatever we do here, it's going to have a tiny, tiny, tiny microscopic impact on the environment, if any whatsoever, at this stage in the game. Those are my thoughts. I mean, that's how I see it. That's how I read it. I still recycle. I still recycle, though, because, 95% of my recycling stuff, it's going to go in the garbage. But I feel better about it. I feel better. I'm putting all my plastics where those need to go. I'm putting all my cans where those need to go. I feel good about myself. I pat myself on the back. I am a recycling Republican. Right? That's what we do. We put out the big blue bin, got the small gray bin because they're trying to point you in the right direction. Here you go, Republican boy. Don't throw away garbage in the tiny little garbage that you got. Put all the recycling in the massive recycling bin. That's literally what we've got here in the state of Washington. I bet you my recycling bin is 3 times as big, maybe 4 times as big as my tiny little midget, or maybe we're not supposed to say that, horizontally and vertically challenged garbage bin. It's literally what they're doing. You got to put it all in recycle, even though it goes in the same exact landfill at the end of the day, right? It's what we're doing. All right. But California's private fleet mandate, it's no longer. It's done. It's along with most of the rest of California's ridiculousness, but that's what should have happened. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. Love to have you subscribe, do all that good stuff. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.